Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of the Ceres podcast. We are really excited to be talking to Mark Petrou. The guy is an absolute legend, love him to bits. He's a previous Fish and Chips of the Year winner, and he's just a really nice, all-round top guy. So we chat to him for a little bit, we delve into the history, the present, and hopefully the future. And I really hope we can get Mark on in the future again, because, again, he's interesting and he's got a lot of knowledge, and he's willing to share that and be honest and put himself out there. So let us know what you think. Thank you, guys. So, Mark, I just want to say a really big thank you for doing this for me. I know how busy you are these days, and so just top man. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
One thing a lot of people probably don't know is that we met in the back of a taxi.
We did, yeah.
And it was in 2005, the year before you won Fish and Chips for the Year, wasn't it?
You got an award that year for charity work, didn't you? You did some work for charity.
It's a far cry from what I do today, isn't it, really?
I think you impressed a lot of people that year.
Yeah, I impressed lots of people for lots of different things these days. So we met in the back of a taxi, and then we re-met about, 6 months later, and then we've been friends ever since, really, haven't we?
Absolutely. You were bored to tears by me banging on about Chippy Chat, I think, because I was just about to launch it, we had a lot in common, I think, because we both have the same heritage, Greek parents, growing up in England, growing up in the back of a chip shop. We found a lot of common ground, and you were doing some pretty amazing things with your business, and I just saw a slimmer, younger, better organised version of myself.
You said that. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you get into fish and chips? I don't think we've ever touched on it properly.
No, well, I've got batter in my veins. My father started, like most Greek immigrants, sort of came over here in the early 60s and found his way into fish and chips. He was actually a waiter at the Savoy for a while. He also sterilised soups for Heinz, and then got a job as a manager at a Wimpy bar, and then found his way into fish and chips. He got his first fish and chip shop in 1967. My brother was born in 1969 and I was born in 1971. So as soon as we could lift a sack of spuds above our heads, we had a job, so that's kind of how we got into it. I went through the education system. My parents moved back to Cyprus when I was 15.
Wow.
But I put myself through university. I did business studies and marketing, and some of that kind of came into the chip shop business. I came home. I did my stint at university down in London, in Greenwich, and I used to travel home on the train every weekend and work in the chippy, and then travel back on a Sunday night, ready for uni on a Monday.
What a dutiful son you were.
Yeah. The wheels fell off it eventually, and I had a spell up in Leeds before I got into the family business. And I think that's where I discovered my love of fish and chips. Happened away from the family business. When I lived in Leeds, there was a fish and chip shop on the Dewsbury Road near the Tommy Wass pub, and they did a fish butty, which was just it was a tiny little chip shop. I don't think it's still there, and and it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever eaten. I think it was just, so I kind of fell in love with fish and chips up north, and when I ended up back in the family business, I figured if I'm going to do fish and chips, I want to do the best that I can at it. So
And obviously, so you sort of straight in, you and your brother, or was your dad still around a bit?
No, he retired in he retired at the age of 46. Went back, lived just outside Iron Appa.
Yeah,
him and my mum, and my brother and I took over the family business. My brother was 17, I was 15.
Damn.
And my brother ran it on his own during the week. And as I said, I used to come home while I was at uni and doing A-levels and stuff. So for about the first 4 or 5 years, I was only part-time.
Yeah.
And then had a couple of years in Leeds and then came back into the family business when I was about 20, 21. And by that time, I'd already had Dutch ranges put on my radar by a guy called Bill Shaw. I'm sure you know. I don't know. You know Bill Shaw, but Bill Shaw was doing his thing with Dutch ranges and making a name for himself, and they were already on my radar. And I went through this difficult period where my brother and I were convincing my father that Dutch ranges were the future, and I think we were the first Greeks to go Dutch.
Really?
Yeah, I honestly believe that. Bill said that we were definitely one of the first Greeks to go Dutch, and we went to Busy Lizzie's and some other great shops and looked at what was happening with these round pans and these square pans. My father had 7 or 8 P&Ts previous to that. And what I didn't realise was that once Bill had sold to us, he used us as like poster boys and touted us around other Greek shops and got them excited about Dutch ranges too. And we were oblivious to that. Bill's a great marketeer. You can say a lot of things about Bill, but he was very good at his marketing.
True.
And
very good.
So I think from an early age, not only because we'd looked at Dutch ranges, but because of the fantastic support and relationship we'd had from the NFFF Peterborough branch, we wove our way into the fabric of the fish frying community from a young age.
In some ways, you were quite lucky because the National Federation of Fish Fryers had quite a prominent branch here, didn't they?
Crikey, yeah. I mean, the Peterborough branch has always been well known for being forward thinking in terms of promoting and advertising. And we cut our teeth in the bosom of the branch. Some great people were running it at the time. Steve Goodacre, Martin Bunnin, real stalwarts. Mike Smith, people that have that had literally decades of experience between them, and we were nursed on that. So the idea of sharing and comradeship and working with fellow fryers was ingrained into our work ethic from a very young age. We used to go one Sunday a month to these meetings with our dad and listen to chip shop politics and strategies and stuff like that. And I've always been very grateful for what the NFFF did for me in the early years. And I ended up as an EC for the NFFF for many years, and I admire very much what Andrew Crook's doing today. So
a lot of people that might be listening to this might not be from the fish and chip industry, and they'd probably be surprised to hear that there's such a strong network in fish and chips.
I think one of the absolute brilliant things about this industry is the fact that we're a network of independent retailers, and we're all pulling in the same direction. And a lot of that is in due, I think, mainly to the work of the Federation and the other industries that are part of it. It is a unique industry, I think, in many ways, because a lot of the suppliers are specialised to our industry, and it is like a huge network, and it's a terrific thing to be part of.
Definitely. And then obviously, so you're in it for such a long time, really, and then obviously in 2006 you won Fish and Chips of the Year.
Yeah.
How many years were you entering that, like, to get there?
We entered once previous to that, and we had our nose. We made the last 10 straight away. We had our nose bloodied by Les Manning, who was a deserving winner. We came off second best that year, but we took a knee. We took a couple of years to look hard at what we were doing.
Would that have been like 2004 then, would it?
I think it was. It might have been 2001.
Oh wow, okay.
So we took a couple of years
to go out and figure it out.
Yeah, we knew that in our current format, we didn't have what it took, and I think at the time as well, winners of Fish and Chip Shop of the Year were they tended to be husband and wife, and although Steve and Martin won it as two partners, we weren't sure if we were really what the industry needed or was looking for as a champion.
Yeah,
because I've always felt that whoever carries that title for a year has got a really important role to do, an important job to do, and you can't just enter the award for what you can get out of it. You need to enter it for what you can bring to it.
Was that? I don't really remember it before you, but like, was that much of the case before? Did a lot of people put back in before you? Do you think, or?
Well, I'm not sure. I think,
or was it just the climate changed?
Every winner before me was deserving, and had done something innovative or outstanding to deserve the accolade. But I think as the landscape of the high street and the industry has changed, I think the demands on the role of champion has certainly evolved. Yeah. And I felt that that you couldn't just have the best shop. You needed to be a safe pair of hands to represent the industry, and that the demands on how you represent the industry were gonna increase.
So
and
you almost saw it like you was a custodian.
Absolutely, yeah.
You wasn't just sort of like you'd won it and then you can creep off and just
I didn't enter it because I wanted to. I wanted the title. I entered because I wanted to. I felt I had something to share with the industry, and I also wanted to reward the people that believed and invested in me. So it wasn't about what I could get out of it; it was what I could bring to it.
And then after your winning year, or actually during your winning year, and then onwards, you obviously got into pubs, inns.
Yeah, who wins Fish and Chip Shop of the Year and then goes and opens a load of pubs?
Well, you clearly thought there was a market there, and
I Fish and chips is my passion, but my brother has a chef background, and we never wanted to fit inside or be restricted by fish and chips, and I always felt that pubs had gotten away for too long with charging more money for an inferior incarnation of our product, and I thought, well, if pubs can charge this much for fish and chips, why don't we do it properly, and really, hit a level that fish and chips deserve? So we like the idea that the new challenges that came with that. I mean, we opened more shops as well. I think we ended up with 6 chip shops, 2 pubs, a cinema, a deli, and
so
goodness knows what else.
You spread yourself a bit too thin, do you think?
In hindsight, looking back, having nearly lost the lot, I would say yes, but it was fueled by ambition, not greed. Yeah. For us, whatever we've done in business has rather naively never been about the bottom line. It only became about money when we didn't have any, and it ran out. All the time we were growing the business, it was because we were just passionate, ambitious and enthusiastic. But obviously in 2008, when the credit crunch came in, the wheels fell off in a big way, and we learnt some valuable lessons. Thankfully, we kept all the plates spinning and everybody got paid, but crikey, was it tough.
So, like, what piece of advice would you give somebody who's thinking, I want to do what he did?
Be careful what you wish for, and go for it, but keep your feet on the floor.
So you managed to get out of the pubs unscathed.
Yeah. Well, actually, we did very well.
Bruises.
We sold them to a brewery for millions, and did very well.
Including the old cinema. Did that go?
Yeah, we sold that to Wetherspoons. But it was a really really tough learning curve, because it's important that you keep enough working capital in your business, because when things tighten up, at the time the banks kind of give you an umbrella when it's sunny and take it away as soon as it starts to rain.
Yeah.
And I know people that lost their homes and their businesses as a result of that. We were lucky. We got away with it, not because we'd planned for it. We got away with it because we worked our asses off to get through it.
Yeah, I remember it was a pretty tough time.
Oh, yeah. It aged me tremendously. And you know what? It absolutely dented my confidence. It took me 10 years to get over it. Even though the financial misery only lasted 2 or 3, it made me not want to get my gun out for a long time.
But like now, would you say it makes you a bit more, what's the word, a bit more sort of selective about your projects?
Absolutely. Nowadays, I'm using my own money. I don't use bank money anymore. I kept selling stuff until I paid everything off, and I just used my own money, and I look at numbers more, so much more. I think something like that turns you into a businessman. And for many years, I was just a really passionate cook whose byproduct from doing what I did well was lots of money, and I didn't really care about the money. And then after you go through an event like that, where your cash flow gets choked and you're geared up heavily with borrowings to keep growing your business, you come out the other side of that, and you're a businessman.
Yeah,
you learn the lessons, and if you're lucky, you get away with it, and if you're not, you don't.
Oh, it's really interesting you think of it like that, to be honest, and because that obviously pushed you on to outside catering. Yeah, and you still do a little bit of that now, don't you?
I do, yeah. I've done quite a bit of work with Bear Grylls and some other large race organisations, Spartan Race, Tough Guy, and I've done outside catering for those. I did the catering for Spartan Race. I think we did about 18,000 burgers over 8 weekends. I do hog roasts and weddings and stuff, but I don't do stuff that's speculative.
Yeah,
I know what I'm going to get paid before I go, and I do my numbers. I do the numbers, and I know that it's going to be worth it, else I don't get out of bed.
So what year was it that you started Chipper Chat Forum?
Okay, so that started because I remember banging on to you about it in the back of that taxi. I actually launched it about 2 weeks before Nigel won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year. So it's 2006, and I won the award in 2007 for Fish and Chip Shop of the Year. And I remember the first person that joined up was a good friend of mine called Ian Watson up in Scotland, Haggis, and I just wanted to create an environment where we could contribute to a knowledge base that everybody could tap into as a resource, and it became like this huge online community where nothing was off the table. We talked about so many things, and I'm confident that people improve their businesses as a result. I think by the time I was done, we had 7,000 people that joined. A lot, and that's a huge amount of people talking about fish and chips, and it was a closed group. And you have to remember that when I came up with Chippy Chat, social media wasn't a thing.
No, it wasn't.
Facebook didn't exist, and I know at the time a lot of people in the industry frowned upon it or feared it, but I think if they could have their time again,
I think now looking back,
they'd wish it was still in that closed group, because
now with Facebook, it's just
at the time I had that tiger by the tail, and it was controlled, it was policed, and now that tiger's running loose. It's all over the internet. People, you can't.
That is the internet.
Yeah, It's uncensored, and at the time I got a lot of flack. Quite often, I would get into trouble for things that other people had said, but
like it was you,
like it was me, and you. I mean, you saw what Chippy Chat did to me. It was. If somebody said something bad about somebody else, that's somebody else.
Something else. Yeah.
That somebody else would phone and moan at me, which was tough.
I think it's difficult. Like now, if it's today and somebody wants to go and say something about someone today, it's one of those things. It's par for the course. Whereas then it was like, oh my God, like, we're not having this, So yeah, you did take a lot of stick for just comments that were said on a platform. That's all it was. It was just a platform. And like you say, today today there's no such thing as a closed group.
No.
And there is no saying to somebody, hey, can you take that down? And so it's interesting. I think it was interesting because it was just so ahead of its time in some respects. And it was a precursor to what we've got today, essentially.
I'm really proud of it. I mean, and it still holds up. If you go onto the forum now, in the archives there are literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of comments. And if you go and do a search, let's say, for example, Valentine's Day, I'll just pull that out of the air. You can find hundreds of fish fries talking about how they're going to promote Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And of course there's a lot of stuff to sift through, but the knowledge base.
Oh, there's loads to sift through. I dread looking at it, to be honest, because of the naive crap that I said all those years ago. But
that's part of the learning process. Every day's a school day.
Yeah. Then I still feel it. But it was just interesting. Like, you learn off so many people. We met so many great people that are still friends today through an online platform.
That's the legacy for me. The thing that I'm so grateful for is all of the good friars that I've met and still keep in touch with. Okay, some of them I don't see that often, but even now, if I go to a trade show, people come up to me and remember what I did, and that for me is a real gift. I'm so grateful for that.
So then, obviously, having that online forum, you wanted to make it a little bit more physical after a while. So then you bought the magazine.
I did.
Created Chippy Chat magazine.
Well, it was originally Keith Dixon owned a magazine called Fryer and Fast Food Operator, and it was thin, and the content wasn't brilliant, and I knew that there were already 3 other magazines in the servicing this sector, and I thought 5 is just it's pointless. So I took one over and rebranded it, really, because I thought it was the best way to get into the sector, and so I rebranded it, printed it on thicker paper, made the content more relevant, so that it involved everybody in the fish and chip community, and I think it was well read and well supported. So yeah, again, I'm proud of that.
It was. I think you sort of brought the online to the physical, if that makes sense, and you made it a bit more real and you made it a bit more personable at the time. And I'm not saying that doesn't exist now, but I think at the time it was different.
Yeah, I tried extremely hard to get to not just get people talking and knowledge sharing, but also to try and make more of a community. So I put on a summer barbecue, I put on the Christmas ball, and we actually got to stand in front of each other, shake hands, talk shop.
Well, and that's something that probably doesn't happen with Facebook.
Not so much, definitely.
And I think that the biggest success of all these events was that I did a lot of the cooking at the barbecue, and no one got diarrhea once. And I think that's pretty amazing, to be honest.
Well, no, look, you're a good cook. I've eaten around yours loads of times. So, you're Greek, so you can barbecue anything. The common rule with barbecuing is, if you can write with it, it's done.
That's a good point. So obviously you had the magazine for how many years before you moved it on?
Crikey, I think I sold maybe 2013, 2014.
And what, if you don't mind me asking, like, what was your thought behind that? What made you sort of like want to get it gone? A
couple of things, really. One was I was becoming increasingly aware that me owning it was I felt toxic. I felt as though there were certain people didn't like one person having this much influence over the industry and having this much. I had the ability a big audience, and I didn't personally like that responsibility either. And I felt as though I'd taken Chippy Chat as far as I could.
Is it any different to, I don't know, the NFFF owning a magazine or Reese Head owning a magazine? I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm a fish fryer who created a media platform, and because I'm a fish fryer, I'm one of them. I'm one of the audience, and because I wasn't trying to sell to them, I think I became trusted. The guys that run the other platforms, they're running a business, and they're very good at what they do, and I've got a tremendous amount of respect for all of them. But they didn't start off as a fish fryer, and I think their agenda is quite transparent. And from my perspective, I just think some people couldn't figure out what my agenda was, and I didn't like that.
So maybe going in hindsight, would you be a little bit clearer, maybe? Or
well, I think in hindsight, what I should have done was maybe been more explicit and explained exactly.
Did you feel your loyalty was to the readers or
Absolutely.
the advertisers? So
always to the reader. I'm a fish fryer, and I wanted to create something for fish fryers, and
See, with an advertising business model, I can see where you was a little bit like stuck. Like,
I was. The thing was, I was, like I said, I was taking quite a bit of flack as well for things that other people were saying, and I just felt that it needed somebody corporate to take it on, to develop it and to grow it, and I think Austin and John and Ollie have done an outstanding job of that.
So one question I think I might have asked you in the past years ago is that if you look at like the wider food industry, you've got magazines like the Caterer, the Publican, such and such. They charge. Yeah. Why do you think that could never be done with our industry? Why not?
Well, I think it could be done. I mean, what you've got here is an industry that's changing massively as well. I mean, print is becoming very expensive. And not only is it becoming expensive, people are starting to resent the idea of cutting trees down for something that's essentially disposable. And I think digital is the future, and print's transitioning now. And again, I think coming back to the guys that have either taken Chippy Chat on or remained in this industry, they're evolving, they're doing all the right things, and for me to come out of it was the right thing to do, to preserve what the legacy of what I'd created. I'd taken it as far as I could, and I think, as I said, that Austin, Ollie, John, Reese, Helen, and the guys at the NFFF in charge of the review, they're all doing the right things, and it was. I think it's just a good time for me to go.
Yeah, I think so. But I do often think, like, editorially, if it'd probably be better if people were paying for the service.
Yeah, it should happen. At the end of the day, why shouldn't you subscribe if you're enjoying the content and you're enjoying what's coming your way? You should be more happy to pay for it.
You think being in the industry, you'd snap the hands off anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, really? I think it's there are loads of magazines that we go into WH Smith's and buy, and if it means that you're going to ultimately get even better content as a result, then why not support it? But it's the same argument for all of the services of the NFFF. It's the same for all of the services that Chippy Chat provides. They don't just put a magazine through your letterbox. They do so much good work in the industry, and Fry as well.
I suppose it just goes back to not everything can be free. Like, it's at a cost.
Apart from salt and vinegar, that's always going to be.
That's
free.
always got to be free, yeah, of course. But I just feel like, that as an industry, you can't expect all of this. You can't. You just got to pay for certain things. And
Yeah. I completely agree.
yeah. But I know that was a challenge of yours back then, and
Yeah, well, the thing was,
especially with mailing costs being, as expensive as what they were, and now they're dearer.
money didn't motivate me as long as I got enough ad revenue to cover costs, and to make it sustainable, which I did.
Yeah.
But again, that didn't really do me any favours with some of the other publications, because they had to make money. That was their business. So if I undercut them with a page cost for an advert, I apologise. It's just like I was never in it for the money. It was never about money, and it was all about providing something for the audience.
As long as the magazine and forum was wiping its mouth, you was pretty happy with that. I
never once dined out on Chippy Chat. I didn't even have a card for expenses. Everything I did while Chippy Chat was under my ownership was done for the people I was doing it for.
So how did you make? So how did you get to wanting to write a book about the industry?
Okay, so again, the motivation behind that, there were two reasons, and I'm going to be completely honest. One was I'd been increasingly frustrated about how, as an industry, we'd not come together as a common marketing force.
Yeah.
As a network of independent retailers, we've got so many strengths, so many advantages to the way our industry's put together, that we should be able to come together as a common marketing force. 10,000 sites, and we're all too busy promoting Mr. Chips, Mr. Cod, and none of us are promoting the umbrella brand of fish and chips. And I thought, if I can put a date in the past that we can all roughly agree was the birth of fish and chips,
like a flag in the sand.
Yeah. Then we can anchor some celebrations to that and come out as this marketing force and say, we are 150 years old. And I thought, what a powerful tool for everybody to get behind. So that was the first motivation behind it. And I thought 2010 is a great, let's do something really powerful for the industry. And I remember at the time I floated the idea to a few people. I was an executive counsellor for the NFFF, which gave me some credibility. Plus, obviously, I had 7,000 people that I was talking to on Chippy Chat.
Yeah.
And Richard Ord stepped up at Coleman's. What a great guy he is.
He's a legend, isn't he?
And he put his hand in his pocket and he paid for a logo to be designed that he made available for everybody to use. So people started having it printed on their boxes and if I don't mention other people that got involved, I apologise. But Richard sticks in my mind because he was, at the time, he was so supportive, and Andrew Crook as well was brilliant. So the NFFF got behind it, and we had this 150-year celebration, and that was my idea.
And what year was that again?
2010. The second reason for writing the book...
the honest reason.
The honest reason for writing the book was financially, I was absolutely on my arse. It was about 18 months after the credit crunch. My business was hemorrhaging, probably about £5,000 or £6,000 a week.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money to be losing.
Yeah.
And I had reserves, but I was chewing into them in a big way. My wife and I were living off fish and potatoes because that's what I used to be able to nick from work. We got quite creative with fish and potatoes. And so I wrote this book, self-published it, and some really kind people read the book, liked the book, and bought advanced copies to sell over the counter to customers. It saved me. Yeah, it absolutely saved me. I think initially it gave me, it brought me in 50 grand very quickly.
Wow.
Which, I'm not. When I read the book now, it makes me cringe because I think there's so many things I could have done better, and I am actually writing a better version of the book. So,
and you feel a bit more liberated, the fact that you don't need the money this time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you can be a bit more creative, let's say. And
yeah. Well, the thing was, everything in the book I meant at the time, but I'm 10 years older now, and I view the industry completely differently. So much has happened in the last 10 years. It's I mean, the whole landscape has changed.
So is it going to be 150 years plus?
It's going to be 100,
reviewed, or 160 years?
160 years is, and I think as an industry we need to get behind that too. I'd love to see a 160 year celebration. In 2020.
So these days, fish and chips is, I think it's the most popular it's ever been. I think you've got pubs, restaurants, everyone's got their signature take on fish and chips. It might not be what you get from a fish and chip shop, but it's definitely their own version of fish and chips.
Well, I think the reason for that is quite simply it's such an honest meal. It hasn't changed in 150 odd years. You've got two raw materials that are harvested from nature. The fish comes out the ocean, the spud comes out the ground, and it's not messed about with. It's not processed. It's simply cleaned, cut and cooked. You can't hide anything nasty in it, and it's one of those dishes that it's going to be a timeless classic. And I think it deserves its place in the heart of the nation. Nobody does it the same. When you look at the 5 basic elements, nobody brings those elements together in the exact same way. I've never had fish and chips and thought, crikey, that tastes just like so-and-so's, because it never does.
Yeah. You can get, I think, like a lot of people say to me sometimes, what's the best fish and chips you've had? And there's a few I can narrow it down, but I don't think you're ever going to jump up and down. It's not like going to a Michelin-style restaurant, or it's just not the same. But there's a few fundamentals that need to be right. And the chips, and what you describe chips like it's a piece of art. But you say, what do the chips need to be like?
Well, as crisp on the outside as a £50 note, and as fluffy on the inside as a summer cloud.
Well, there you go. You see, and I think that's the point. Like, the chips need to be perfect. They can't taste oily. The fish needs to be perfectly crisp, and and when you break into it, you want to see steam, not like, oh, it's been sitting there for ages. And I think that for me, it just has to hit those fundamentals. And I'm a condiments guy. I want all the condiments. I want peas, and I want curry, and I want a bit of ketchup on the side, and definitely tartar sauce. And I'll just keep dipping away each one. But I think for me, the relevancy of fish and chips from fish and chip shops depends on those factors. Because I think you can go and have mediocre fish and chips anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think, well, if we want to stay relevant, right, as in the fish and chip industry wants to stay relevant, they've got to start punching above their weight in terms of that.
Yeah, I've been to some amazing fish and chip shops. Every day for me is a school day. Whenever I go to a fish and chip shop, I'm always looking to learn. And some of the best fish and chips I've ever had, they humble you, don't they? When you've got something that's it's such a simple meal, but when it's done well, you're eating something special.
Definitely. Do you think the fish and chip industry can punch above its weight in like the rest of the wider food industry?
I think it already is. I mean, I think that's why it's so often imitated by other industries. They're always trying to replicate it. But I do think that the best fish and chips still comes from a chip shop.
Yeah. So you don't ever foresee the fish and chip industry being like decimated, like the butcher industry or the baker's industry?
No. The mandate for fish and chips has always been, and I've said it many times, the mandate for fish and chips, affordable food for the masses. And as soon as you take fish and chips away from that environment, it loses something. Mm-hmm. You can go to a Michelin-starred restaurant and have some good fish and chips. You can go into a pub and have good fish and chips. You can go loads of different places to have good fish and chips. But fish and chips belongs in a chippy. And it's the fact that you're having something that's made for your own community. No matter where you are in this country, each site has a menu and an incarnation of the product that is tailored to its own community. And they wouldn't survive if they weren't.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a celebration of differences, and that's what I love about going into a fish and chip shop. And you can reduce the risk of it being an average portion in a number of ways. Just say, do you mind if I wait and have it fresh?
Yeah.
It's very
So
simple.
as a consumer, you'd always be saying, look, I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, pan perfect portion comes straight from the pan. If I go into a shop and there's no queue, I wait for it fresh. If there's a queue, quite happy to have the next.
But you
bit
know
that
it's
comes on.
moving. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And that's, as an operator who likes to be a consumer, let's face it, I love my fish and chips.
Yeah.
You know that. That's what I insist on as a consumer.
And how do you feel that things are going to change now with like modern technology? You've got online, you've got delivery systems, you've got takeaway, you've got all sorts. What do you think? What's going to shake out for fish and chips?
Well, the landscape is changing massively. I think that that fish and chip shops may move from the high street. I'm already seeing now ghost kitchens appear where there is no high street presence, and as people begin to make online ordering their habit rather than actually getting in the car and going down to a shop, I think there's going to be an element of some sites not having a counter, not having a till, and maybe moving from high streets where commercial rents are high into industrial estates or purpose-built kitchens that have no high street presence, and the branding will all be online, and that's a possibility. I don't have a crystal ball, and I've got predictions wrong in the past. But I'm already seeing evidence of that in other sectors. So there's no reason why that couldn't happen for fish and chips. But what I will say is that there's always going to be a place in the high street for a fish and chip shop, or in a community area for fish and chips.
So they'll just change a little bit.
Yeah. I think that they're going, essentially the offer, the way that it's sold, the way that it's purchased, is more likely to change. See, the food itself doesn't need fixing because it's not broken.
As an industry, most people seem fairly resistant to delivery service, yet pizza's really strong in delivery. Chinese food is and Indian food is. What do you think? All food is now. If you look at Deliveroo, you look at Just Eat, there's a lot of different cuisines being delivered. What's holding our industry back?
Well, there's a couple of points to make here. I think we all know that fish and chips starts to wilt the minute it comes out of the pan. And when somebody collects the product, the burden of responsibility and the quality of the end product, what ends up on somebody's plate, shifts the minute it leaves your shop. So, but when you're delivering it to somebody's home, if it doesn't arrive in perfect condition, the burden of responsibility falls on the operator. So I think in terms of making sure your fish and chips arrive in tip-top condition at somebody's door, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to be disciplined in making sure that your product is packaged as quickly to it coming out of the pan as possible. Excuse me. You give the product survival space. By survival space, I don't just mean it in how it's presented, but you've got to allow steam to escape as well. And then you need to get it there in a timely fashion. And I think if you're disciplined about those things, fish and chips can deliver just as well as a pizza, a kebab.
If you think customers are taking it home, they don't eat it in the car, do they? So,
but when a customer takes it home, they see the condition it's in as you wrap it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't arrive in that condition, it's their fault.
Yeah.
When you deliver it,
they don't see anything.
They don't see any of that
until it gets there.
And I think that's a challenge that is only overcome by being disciplined in how you send your product out. And I did deliveries for many years and stopped because I got so busy with it. I wasn't happy with what
the
my
end
customers
product. Yeah.
So I stopped for that reason.
So we almost need a technology that's going to allow the takeaway to get more efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the so maybe people can bring up. But again, I see online on the Facebook groups that some people seem resistant about telephone collections.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a camp of people that say, no, I don't mind telephone collections because I know what's coming and when it's coming. And other people are like, no, everyone can queue normally, thank you. And it's interesting. So what sort of camp would you fall on there?
Well, as you know, at my sites, I've always had a separate till
Yeah.
for people collecting phone orders. So I'm kind of already ahead of that. Look, there's a technology bus, and you're either on it or you're not.
Yeah.
And some people get off at certain stops. My father couldn't send an email. He could barely work a TV these days. So he got off the technology bus a long time ago.
Yeah.
And earlier on I talked about the challenge of getting him to accept Dutch ranges. And it came down to me saying to him, look, I'm not the boss's son. You're the boss's dad. It's my time now. And you have to realise that, I'm making the decisions, not you. You need to take a back seat. And the same happens. As things move on, it's called progress.
Yeah.
And you either get on that technology bus and go with it, or you stand and wave it off. But if you stand and wave it off, some of your customers are going to be on that bus.
Yeah.
So I think talking about telephone answering, if you're not taking telephone orders, I think you're short-sighted.
Yeah.
Because I think telephone orders aren't the norm. I think they're sort of being replaced by people that are ordering online.
Yeah.
And you can either look at online platforms as something that you embrace, something that you fear, or something that you ignore. And I think if you fear them or ignore them, you're being short-sighted.
Yeah.
So if you're serious about being in business and growing your business and evolving your business, then you need to be serious about how people are choosing to order their food these days. With that in mind, you've then got options. Do I go with an online platform that is owned and controlled and managed by somebody else? For example, Just Eat. Mm-hmm. Or do I look at doing something bespoke, independent for myself?
Cultivating your own.
Yeah. So you've got to decide, am I going to stay on the technology bus or get off? And there'll be some shops that don't, and they will. I'm sure they'll do fine, but they won't be achieving their full potential. And I think I alluded before that I've seen shops with an inferior product that are busier than shops with a great product, simply because they're engaging with their customers. And they're winning business because people can order from them the way that they want to order their food. And it shouldn't make sense, but it does. If you've got the best food in the world, but people don't want to get off their arses to go and get it, you're in trouble.
You've got to admit, convenience is a big draw.
Oh, it's massive. People are time poor.
Yeah.
And people choose fish and chips for many reasons. They may love fish and chips, but they may love the convenience of fish and chips. They may love the fact that all they've got to do is swipe and their fish and chips are going to arrive.
Yeah.
And there's a generation that aren't on the technology bus that are still getting in their cars. But they're dying.
But it's not only that. Do you not want to be able to serve everybody in every way, shape or form?
Yeah, I mean, you
As
can
a
make
business,
a choice.
you want to,
You can make a choice. I think these ghost kitchens that I talked about, they're never going to get that aging generation. Let's say that there are typically three generations. You've got the grandparents, the parents, and the children. Grandparents, not many of them are swiping.
No,
they're not using apps. Some of them are. Some of them are still on that technology bus. You've got the middle generation, the kind of in between. Then you've got the young generation. Look at what has happened in the last 10 years. Look what's likely to happen in the next 10 years. With every decade that passes, the landscape is changing. The high street is already, in many respects and in many industries, on its knees as a result of the internet. How many people now go out shopping for the day? How many people now stay at home and do it from the comfort of their own sofa?
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
Okay, so the same applies with food. You need to accept that having well-branded vehicles, well-branded staff, well-presented staff, brilliant packaging, all of these things are essential.
What about a lot of people that would say, well, that's a cost that they can't pass on? I'm being devil's advocate here. Yeah,
I think it's a cost that is. It's not a case of can you afford to; it's can you afford not to.
Yeah,
and the shops that evolve will ultimately be the ones that succeed, and it may not be because their product's better, and that's the frustrating thing, because I see people that are cooking superb fish and chips and wondering why they're not busy, and I think it's a very big part of some of the challenges that we face. But you know what? These are challenges. It's exciting times. It's nothing to be afraid of. Look at when VAT went online and PAYE went online, and you could no longer do these things manually.
Yeah.
You had to
get with it.
You had to get with it, and the same applies. Thank goodness.
It's interesting because, talking about keeping up or even being ahead of the trend, if you look at like Domino's Pizza, they literally put down their success to the fact that they've always been, well, at least trying to be one step ahead of ordering trends. So, years ago when it was a thing, you could order a pizza off Sky TV. You can order it off the apps, off the phones very quickly. And I think now you can even order a pizza off Alexa. And they always put it down to, we always want to be ahead of the game.
Drones.
Yeah.
Drones, they'll be flying them in soon.
Yeah.
And I know they're already testing in Berlin. They're testing drones that don't fly. They're on the ground.
I think
they're on the ground. But
I think Domino's Pizza is a massively classic case of mediocre pizza delivered to your door.
Yeah.
It's not the best pizza you're ever going to have. We know that.
No, it's not.
But did you have to go out and get it? No.
Yeah.
Was it hard to? Well, it's probably the only. I'll tell you what is probably hard is if you want to actually call Domino's Pizza to order your pizza, because you could probably do it every other way.
It's not only that. I find the menu is extremely complicated. There are deals, but you need a degree in physics to be able to figure out how to get it. And I find them fucking expensive.
Yeah,
pizza.
Oh, horrendously. Yeah, it's just like considering what it costs and what you can get from a supermarket. But again, and I think this is a classic case to anybody in the food industry, is it's the value of convenience. I mean, my one of my daughters is gluten free, and when we really, really, really can't be asked, do Domino's. Yeah, and because you get gluten free once she's happy, you get all the different toppings, and but we usually do that. It's a last resort, but it's there. It's the power of convenience. I'm not saying it's. I'm not saying that everyone out there is lazy, but we're, like you said, time poor. Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing. But one thing I wanted to ask you, because it's been a few years anyway, but a few years back, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, you had the idea of doing a national media, what was it called? A national media campaign, raising loads of money, doing like a TV advert, and really trying to raise some great needed publicity for the industry. I remember when it was. It was after I'd won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year, but it was the year that I was the champion. Yeah. And there was a social event on, not organised by me, when I knew a lot of the industry, the top brass, would be there. And so I hijacked that event and got them all to come and meet me the day after, which was a really bad idea because I didn't realise they'd all be hanging out of their own arses. But they all turned up and they listened to what I had to say, and I think at the time I suggested that just like Seafish have a levy, there must be a way that we could put a levy on some key products so that we created a fund for advertising. It was a great idea, but it was flawed, and it never went anywhere. Do you think it's something that could be, with a bit more thought, brought back to life? I don't think it can, and I think the reasons for that stand up. That the reason why I think it would be very difficult now is because the amount of TV channels has become massively diluted. Yeah. Knowing before you can embark in any kind of
PR or advertising campaign, you need to know where your audience is.
Would you
who
need
your
TV
audience
these
is.
days?
No, you don't. So I think if there was some kind of national campaign, it's something that needs to be done in one of 2 or 3 places. Social media is an obvious choice, and as a network of independent retailers, we have such a big advantage over the big boys.
Yeah.
Fish and Chips, when it comes to advertising on social media, is so much more powerful to us than it is to McDonald's or KFC or Subway or any of these guys, because we're woven into the fabrics of our own communities, and if we provided the tools for us all to do things for our own audiences, we would be very powerful. So, and I've actually spoken to Andrew Crook, and I said, look, the NTFF, if they were to come up with the tools for people to use on social media, so we were all on the same page.
Yeah.
How powerful would that be? And it's so cheap to do.
Yeah, and of course it is.
So I've always felt that the umbrella brand of Fish and Chips needs promoting. So we shouldn't be promoting our own brand. If it's our audience, we should promote Fish and Chips.
To be fair, if you set up like a GoFundMe page and every fish and chip shop dropped a $5 in,
Well,
imagine the reach that would get for social media.
It's so powerful. McDonald's don't. None of the big boys can do that.
No,
they don't have that. They would have to throw money at it, and really, it would be like trying to catch a fish in a jam jar while standing by the ocean. So, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be able to do it. I personally think that Fish and Chips has a great opportunity here, and one thing I tried to do a few years ago was an idea called Wish and Chips.
Mm-hmm.
And as an industry, sorry, I need to go back a bit, because I said that there's a couple of places and social media is one. The other place to do it would be over the counter.
Yeah.
We have so many wonderful spaces in our own shops where we could be promoting, and we don't. Instead, we tell people what we're selling and how much it costs. We don't promote our brand enough.
No.
And we... but what we do is we collect money. I said do. We collect money over our counters for other charities.
Yeah.
And what I tried to do with Wish and Chips was to create a fund where we could give money back to our customers.
Build goodwill from the fish and chip industry.
So if we had our own collection jars on our counters called Wish and Chips, and that went into a pot, and we used it to promote the good work that we do as an industry for our customers, and we allowed our customers to apply to that fund, a new roof for the Scout Hut, or something good in your own community. And we created a fund called Wish and Chips.
That makes complete sense.
We could also use that fund to promote Fish and Chips, and I would have loved to have made that
It's similar to the Ronald McDonald charity in some respects.
Yeah.
This is just a lot more independent, isn't it? Yeah.
We've always collected for the Fisherman's Mission, which I think is very important, very valid. But we collect for other people. We don't collect for ourselves. And I would love the NTFF to champion something like that. Because we've got 10,000 counters, 10,000 tills, that's a lot of change. If you imagine if we got £1 a day out of chip shops, 10 grand a day.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad, isn't it?
And what a fund that would create. And you could do so many amazing things for customers of fish and chip shops.
I think someone like Andrew Crook, the president of the Federation of Fish Fryers, would be quite receptive to an idea like that. To be
honest. They weren't when it was my idea.
Well, it's still your idea. It's still,
I think it's such a powerful way to make our customers' money work for us and for our customers.
No, exactly. That makes complete sense. So one thing we have touched on is the past and the present. Yeah. So, just quickly, how would you summarise what the future holds in your opinion?
For fish and chips?
Yeah. Or even the wider food industry, whichever, really.
Okay, well, I think we've got no issues in terms of sustainability because as an industry, we've done the right thing. We've been doing the right thing for decades before it was news. Fish and chips is always going to be a trustworthy meal. You know, it's a meal that you can trust. It's very honest. It's always going to be, I want to say affordable, but that makes me nervous because I don't think fish and chips will always be affordable. It'll always be great value.
But I think everything moves up at the same time as fish and chips going up. So it will always, I think, look, whether you want to be affordable, but great value is probably a better place to be, isn't it?
I think it's always going to represent great value. And I want to encourage shops to protect their margins. You know, I don't want fish and chips to be cheap. I've never wanted it to be cheap. It's worth so much more than we're charging for it now. And it's only through protecting the brand and having powerful advertising that we're going to be able to protect those margins. You know,
it's true.
So I'd like to see fish and chips, quite rightly.
At the same time, I'd probably like to see people understand more about the business side. I see a lot of comments at the moment where people aren't too sure about the margins, how to calculate the margins, and I think you've always got to start from a point of understanding and knowing. Before you can make those decisions about being cheap or expensive or value for money, I think you've just got to know. And once you know, you can start making informed decisions. And maybe that's like, I know that's nothing to do with the future of fish and chips. That's maybe more to do with the present of fish and chips. But I think the people that don't know, and if they don't find out soon, will probably be in a trickier place than what they want to be.
I mean, when you look at our competition, virtually everything else that goes up against fish and chips in terms of choices people make when they're choosing a meal is either processed, bulked out, or added to in some way, shape, or form. There's nothing as honest as fish and chips as a meal, and
I think it's very nutritionally honest. I think you've got prime fish, prime cod, or haddock, whichever it is you want to be. Nice potatoes. And
it's the only. You give me another meal where it's not got any salt added to it, no colourings, flavourings, enhancers in any way. We leave it to the customer to put on. So we've got so many powerful, good things to say about our product that add value to it.
I think,
and we just don't do it.
As much as I love fish and chips, I disagree slightly with that though, because you know what business I come from, and some people do fiddle with that aspect, and they shouldn't fiddle with fish and chips. Like, it doesn't need the artificial flavours, it doesn't need all of that, but some people feel compelled to. But there's no reason, because I feel that it's a nutritionally balanced and honest meal. And there's no need to add a bit of this to gain advantage. And I think sometimes people think they're being, they think they're gaining an advantage, but they're just not. They're making their job harder. That's my little take. Sorry to disagree.
No. I mean, my incarnation of the product, I don't add anything to it. And you know how I make my product, and I'm able to, I'm able to promote it that way. Having said that, when I think about the future of fish and chips, I'm very proud of the way we do things over here. Look at the Australian model. The marriage of fish and chips is slightly different. It's all about the fish there. The chips are all frozen. It's all about the fish. There's more fish and chip shops in Australia than there are in the UK.
Wow.
And but when I look at the product here, it is fish and chips. And
it's the perfect pair, isn't it?
And the future of fish and chips is bright. It's going to prevail. I think there is going to be a certain amount of sieving. There will be shops that don't get on the technology bus. There will be shops that fall by the wayside, and I see that as a good thing. I think if we were to go down from 10,000 shops to 7, as long as we lose the crap ones, that's only going to be good, because fish and chips is always going to have this place in the heart of the nation.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that needs to happen, but I think that's likely to happen.
I think you're right.
And I think there will be one or two shops that come out of the high street, but essentially the mandate for fish and chips is always going to be that affordable or great value meal for the whole family.
So I'm conscious that I'm taking up lots of your time.
It's okay.
And I wanted to sort of ask a few general questions. And, we've been through this already, and I think you know the answers. What book would you recommend that our listeners rush out and get straight away? Ideally from a local store, or just click it from your phone.
Well, the one book that had the biggest impression on me it's very easy to answer. I'm just not sure if it's still in print or if you can find it. It's a book by an American or Canadian author called Michael LeBoeuf, and it was called, it's quite a long title, How to Make a Lot More Business in a Lot Less Time, The 10 Commandments of Speed. And it was such an inspirational book to me, and I applied all those 10 commandments to my business when I was young and growing it. And for example, one of those 10 commandments is the idea that the phrase "time is money" is redundant.
Yeah.
The new phrase is "speed is profit," and the quicker you can do something, the more profitable you'll be. Another one of those 10 commandments is do it right first time.
Yeah.
Because if you do the job right first time, again, it's the most efficient way of doing things. Customer satisfaction is as high as it can be. Profit is as high as it can be, because you're not having to redo stuff. And there are eight other principles in there. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but this book was for me getting everybody working to those principles. Made my business extremely well organised, efficient, profitable, productive. It was a big thing for me. So that book, I've actually bought a few copies and given them as gifts to people, and they've all said.
So you took it out of print? Is that what you said?
It's still available. I think it's been printed a couple of times.
I'll try and find it, and I'll put it in the show notes anyway, so people can then click on it and purchase it.
It's a really good book.
And they can all message on Facebook and let you know how they got on.
yeah.
And who is your who do you look up to the most? Who's your person of inspiration? Who would you say has really been like a rock or a pillar, or it could be different people. It could be someone from in the industry, out of the industry. It could be anything.
Okay, so I don't think I could answer that without mentioning my brother, because people obviously know me, but most of the achievements I've done in the industry I could have done without him. Mm-hmm. He's a different version of me, and people that know us quite often say together we make a good bloke. He's a different animal to me altogether, but he's been a massive influence to me. My parents moved to another country when I was 15, so in many ways he was my dad for a few years. In the industry, I couldn't not mention Fred. Because
Fred Capel from Shea Fred in Bournemouth.
When I was deciding what I wanted to do, he's somebody that I looked up to tremendously. And there's a couple of things that I'd like to say about Fred that had a massive influence on me. One was that Fred had the opportunity, the ability and the potential to have grown his fish and chip brand into a national chain, and chose not to. And I admire and respect him massively for that, because he decided for his own reasons that having one was enough. And and there's a lot to be said for that. You know, he's and by his own admission, Fred has never kept himself to himself. He's always shared and embraced everybody in the industry.
Yeah.
And when you visit his shop, it's like visiting a favourite aunt. He's been at the top of the game for so long, and it's not because he does one thing right, one big thing right. It's because he does hundreds and hundreds of little things right. And somebody has to be the best, and in my opinion, it's always been him.
Okay.
And he's a fucking nice bloke as well.
I just think now at this point he'll probably skip over and not even listen at all. I know what he's like.
Yeah,
so.
that's the thing is he's humble and he's a nice bloke as well.
Yeah, and you've just ruined my ability of him sharing it on social media as well, because he won't share anything with his name in it. No, but he is a top guy, isn't he?
He's a good guy.
And so that's the two people you choose, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put you in there as well.
Get lost. I nearly swore. Get lost. Yeah. I got told firmly, let others swear, but you don't swear. And I just nearly swore. So I get lost. Yeah. And so what do you think's next for you? You know, you're going to, anything else for Petrou Brothers? You're going to let it coast, or what were you thinking?
I think I've got one good shop left in me.
Yeah.
I've sold. So what have I been doing? I decided when my second daughter came along that I really wanted those that I wanted out.
Yeah.
So I pulled right back from the industry in around about 2010, 2011, around about that time. I pulled back, sold Chippy Chat, and I've been a family man very much. I've enjoyed being a father and a parent and a husband. And I've so I managed to pick up some nice awards along the way as well. I got outstanding achievement in 2013, which was lovely, and I've got some training awards and stuff. I had a heart scare a couple of years ago, and at that point I realised that time is the real commodity, not money.
Yeah.
And so I've wanted to. I've become more precious over my time than money. So I sold 5 of my chip shops. I've just got one now. Sold my pubs. I've sold loads of things, and I'm building houses. So building houses is really good because I can't lay a brick and I can't hammer a nail and I can't saw a bit of wood. So it's something that I can do from a golf course.
Yeah.
And I make bloody good money building houses, but I still kept one chip shop.
Yeah.
I'm still doing training. I'm doing judging for Seafish. Can't really talk about that.
But at least there's a podcast. No one can see what you look like.
Yeah. So I'm building houses, but I do think I've got one more chip shop left in me. But I want to wait. I want to wait a few more years until my kids.
Don't need you as much, maybe.
Well, they're not interested in, all the time they want me around, I'm going to be around.
Yeah.
And then when they flee the nest and there's a big hole in my life, I'm gonna probably come back.
Do that.
I'm going to do one more fuck off shop, and then I'm going to win Fish and Chip Shop of the Year again.
That sounds good. That sounds like you just threw down the gauntlet.
Well, look, somebody's got to win it twice. Nobody's ever said to Manchester United, you can't win although this year they've got no bloody chance at all.
Well, Nigel Hodgson's given it a good try, hasn't he?
He's given it a good try, and you know what? I don't know what it's going to take for somebody to win it twice, because Nigel is one of the most particular operators I've ever met.
Yeah,
his attention to detail is fantastic. His commitment to his shop, to the industry, is phenomenal. And maybe the powers that be don't want somebody to win it twice.
It's not in the rules, though, is it?
No. Although when I came back in 2010 after winning it in 2008 after winning it in 2006. It was a bit
soon.
It was. I had a year off and then I made the final again. They did say to me, "You're not going to win it twice. You know that, don't you?"
Yeah.
And so
He was a bit of a bad smell then, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah.
Fuck 'em, I'm going to do it. I might come back. You never know.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of years. If I could drop a couple of dress sizes and look pretty again, it might happen.
Oh, well, look, on that note, I think I've took off plenty of your time. Mark, thank you very much.
Cheers.
And I think we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Thanks, man.
And catch you in a bit.
My dear.
So thank you everyone for listening in. Mark was, like I said, top guy. And, do us a favour and comment about it, subscribe, share, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.